morning. Welcome to you. Today I've got a great show, I think. It's jam-packed full of what I believe is going to be information that's going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes in the future. But before we get to that, I first want to just throw out a big thank you and a salute to all of our service members and our veterans out there. Thank you so much for all your sacrifices and everything you've done for us. You know, do you have an IRA or a 401k? And should you even think about converting those accounts to a Roth IRA? You know, there's some experts out there that believe it's a no-brainer. And quite honestly, I do too. And by the time you leave today's show, I'm hoping you are thinking the same thing. I'm going to try to prove it to you as time goes by today. You know, not only could you save thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes, you could also offer many other significant advantages that you don't get from your IRA or your 401k. Let me tick them down for you. With a Roth, you get tax-free income in retirement. Your contributions and your future earnings, but both of them come out tax-free. There is no required minimum distribution. That's tick number 2. So you're not forced to withdraw money at age 70 and a half, and that's huge. I got many clients that hate having to do that. In fact, you never have to withdraw any money from your Roth IRA at all if you don't want to. And number 3, you can pass this money along to your beneficiaries. Think about it. Once you're done with it, once your spouse is done with it, your kids can get it. They can use it for their retirement tax-free. They then, when they're done with it, they can pass it on to their kids, so you can create a tax-free family legacy. What a deal. Now, these are just a few of the reasons why you should consider converting to a Roth IRA, but there's also many more advantages and benefits. And even if you're in a high income bracket, I'm going to try to prove to you today that it makes sense for you. Now, there's some restrictions. You know, a Roth IRA is not for everybody. The key is understanding your options. But for many people, converting to a Roth IRA could help you avoid paying tens of thousands of dollars in taxes and a lot more possibly. To convert or not to convert? That is the question. So in today's show, I'm going to try to reveal the simple pros and the cons of converting to a Roth IRA. And let's explore if a Roth is right for you and how it could potentially save you a ton of money in taxes. You know, before we do this, let's lay the foundation here. The simple question is this, and I ask this when I give talks to the public, and I ask it to everybody that comes to see me. Do you think taxes are going to be higher in the future than they are now? Almost everybody. In fact, I'd say it's like 99.9% tell me, yeah, I think taxes are going to be higher in the future than they are now. And there certainly is precedent. You know, we have a $20 trillion debt, and it's growing. I said on this show many times before, I don't think it mattered a hill of beans who got elected. You know, we still have the same problems that would face both candidates. Trump is the president, and, you know, he has a ton of stuff to deal with. Debt, it's huge. How are you going to get rid of this debt? In my view, taxes have got to go up. Let's take a step back and look at history in this country. The highest marginal tax rate was 90% right after World War II. Then they cut it in the early 50s to 70%. And it stayed at 70% until Ronald Reagan took over. And then it went down to about 28, 29%. Currently, the highest marginal rate is 39.6%. So given that, don't we have precedent for tax rates to go higher? Yeah, we do. Absolutely we do. Now, will they get back to 90%? I doubt that. Will they get back to 70%? I hope not. But could they go to 50? You betcha. And they could go higher than that. So given all that, if you believe that, don't you think making a decision to convert to a Roth makes a lot of sense? What's the negative? Well, the negative is you got to pay tax, right? On the conversion, whatever amount you convert, you pay tax. Therefore, you're probably not going to want to convert 100% of your account in 1 year. For most of you, that would be an extremely big tax burden to have to bear. But you could convert some of it every year. And we're going to go over an exercise in a little bit, maybe in the second segment, about how to do a technique I love called bracket bump. And I'll give you some examples. And we'll see if this makes sense for you. You know, a lot of CPAs will tell you, it doesn't make a lot of sense to convert to a Roth because you got to pay this tax. But remember something about a CPA. Most CPAs are focused solely on saving you taxes now, the here and the now, not in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, the here and the now. So they look at it as adding an unnecessary tax burden. You know, I'm a member of Ed Slott's group. Ed Slott is the nation's renowned expert on anything to do with IRAs and 401ks. He is a CPA, and Ed gets it. You know, he is a huge proponent of tax-free income. He believes, just like I do and most people, taxes will be certainly higher in the future. His big slogan, and I love this, he says, you need to go from being forever taxed to never taxed. And if you just joined us, you're listening to the Wealth Guardians right here on 94.5 WPTI. Today we're talking about the pros and the cons of converting your 401k or your IRA to a Roth IRA and how you could potentially save just thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes. And for example, when you convert your retirement accounts into a Roth, you're going to get tax-free income in retirement. There's no required minimum distributions, and you can pass this money on to beneficiaries completely, totally tax-free. There are restrictions, sure. So the question does become, does converting to a Roth make any sense for me? I can answer that question for you. You can either call us or you can schedule a time to visit with us personally. It's your choice. Either way, you can count on getting an objective, straightforward advice. We'll use our proprietary software to run the numbers for you and see if it makes sense. So call us today at 336-391-3409. It's no cost to you. There's no obligation. And what you learn could help you avoid forking over thousands of dollars in taxes to the IRS. That's 336-391-3409. So, again, should you even consider converting to a Roth? Oh, I think you should at least consider it. You know, take me up on my offer. That's the first step. But let's talk about a few things. You know, Roth IRAs have some limitations. They have income limitations for making contributions, but we got very, very fortunate back in 2010 when Congress passed a law that said, we're taking the income limitations off of a Roth conversion. So it doesn't matter how much money you make. You can make $10 million a year and you can still convert to a Roth IRA if you want to. It used to be that converting had an income limit. So let's look at some of the pros for converting. You know, we know for a fact that 90% of retirement accounts end up being left to a beneficiary. In other words, the person just doesn't deplete his IRA account during his lifetime. They just don't do it. So if a goal of yours is to leave a legacy to a child, to a grandchild, this is a great way to do that. That's one. Are you going to face high RMDs, required minimum distributions in retirement? You know, at 70 and a half, you're going to have to start taking money out of that IRA and that 401k. And as it grows and as you age, those RMDs, required minimum distributions, get bigger. Give you an idea. At 70 and a half, if you have $100,000 in your IRA, your RMD, your required minimum distribution, is going to be about $3,500. If that account keeps growing and as you age, then the percentage is going to go up. It'll go from about $3,500 to $4,000, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you may be fortunate enough that you don't need to take income from your IRA, but the IRS is going to force you to do that. So that's one big consideration. You know, what you take out of that IRA is going to be counted towards taxation of your Social Security. Guess what a Roth doesn't do? A Roth IRA does not count towards taxation of your Social Security. That's another big plus. Well, speaking of Social Security, you may fear, like some people do, that in the future it could be means tested. In other words, income means or asset means. But a Roth IRA is not going to be counted towards an income test. So lots of good reasons here. The only negative I can think of is the tax consequence that you have to pay. Now, ideally, when I do a Roth conversion, I would love to have a client be able to pay that tax out of monies that are set aside, maybe in a savings account or a CD that right now aren't paying you anything. That's the ideal way to do it. And there's a lot of texts that say that's the only way you should do it. I disagree with that. In the second segment, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to show you some math that I think will prove my point on this. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, nobody likes to pay tax, especially if you don't want to. You have to be forward thinking when you're thinking about doing a Roth conversion. And like I've said many times on this program, you know, that's how we build these retirement income plans. It's forward thinking, looking at your future 5 years, 10 years, 15 years in the road. Does this Roth account make sense for you? Well, it could, and it may not. There are some situations it's not right for. But how do you know? How do you have any idea at all unless you sit down with me and let's run the numbers for you and see what it looks like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road? You may like what you see. Then again, you may find out, hey, it's not for me. Look, I'm offering you the chance. It's free. You don't have to pay me, no obligation. Call us at 336-391-3409. You've been listening to The Wealth Guardians right here on 94.5 WPTI, the Piedmont's news, talk, and sports station. Hey, welcome back. I'm Doug Ray, and thank you so much for being a listener of today's Wealth Guardian show. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that and appreciate you folks so much. Question is, do you have an IRA or a 401k? And the other question is, should you convert any or all of this money to a Roth IRA? Converting to a Roth could potentially save you thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes. It's going to give you tax-free income in retirement if you need it. There are no required minimum distributions. It does not count towards taxation of your Social Security. And finally, you can pass this money on to your beneficiaries completely tax-free. But there's restrictions. So it's not for everybody. It's just not. I think it's right for most, but not everybody. So what I'm going to try to do in this segment is I'm going to try to mathematically prove to you how converting makes a lot of sense. So let's step back a minute. In the first segment, we reviewed what tax rates used to be, as high as 90% in this country. I also revealed the fact that most people believe taxes are going to be higher in the future. But do you know what tax rates are currently? The highest marginal tax rate is 39.6%. We actually have, and I'm looking at them right here, 7 different brackets that run from 10% up to 39.6%. All right, let's do some math. Now look, I realize trying to do math on the radio is dangerous, so hang with me. And in fact, you might want to take out a pen and pencil and write some of these numbers down as I go if you're not driving. If you're driving, you can always go back on my website at thewealthguardians.com when you get home and listen to this, because I think this is going to be, I hope it's going to be an eye-opener for most of it. So let's look at the first 3 brackets. The 10% bracket, and we're going to use married folks that file jointly because that's what most of us do. So that runs on taxable incomes of $0 to $18,550. Then we jump up to the next bracket of 15%, And that runs from $18,550 to $75,300. Now that's a big, big gap there. That's a lot. And we can use that to our advantage. All right, the next bracket is the 25% bracket. That's $75,300 to $151,900. That's another big, big bracket that we can use to our advantage. And I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to get too complicated on the radio. But the other reason I'm going to stop here is because most of the folks that I'm working with in retirement fall into these three brackets most of the time. All right, so let's say you're a 65-year-old, you're retired, your taxable income is $45,000 a year. So that puts you square in that 15% bracket, okay? And you got some IRA money hanging out over there that you're considering converting. Now, at 65 years of age, most CPAs will say, don't do that. It's not going to be worth it to you. Well, let's look at that very closely. Let's see if it makes some sense to convert some, maybe not all, of your IRA money. Now, this technique, I call it bracket bump. Every year we do the math for you. We've got the software. We bring it in. We get your 1040 returns from last year, figure out what tax bracket you're in, and start crunching the numbers. What we find is this. If you are in the $45,000 taxable income bracket, again, your top, before you go into the 25% bracket, is $75,300. So what we want to do is subtract your $45,000 of taxable income from $75,300. Okay? Let's just round these numbers, okay? Make it easy for ourselves. That's going to give us capacity of $30,000. Meaning we can convert about $30,000 at 15% tax rate to a Roth. Okay, so how much in tax do you have to pay on $45,000 or $30,000? Easy answer. You're going to have to pay $4,500 extra in tax that year to convert it. Okay, you say, ouch. Yeah, ouch. But remember, that $4,500 is your ticket to go from forever taxed to never taxed. So let's do a little quick break-even analysis. Now you got that $30,000 growing in a Roth IRA. All right. So assuming you paid the tax out of other funds in a non-qualified account, your savings, CD, something like that, that whole $30,000 is, say, growing at 5%. How quickly will you break even on your taxes? Well, again, it's pretty easy math. At 5% a year, that's $1,500 in earnings. It takes 3 years to make up the $4,500. Now you're 68 years of age. What's your life expectancy? If you're a male in this country and you're in relatively good health at 65, then the tables say you should make it to mid-80s. Yeah. So you got 20 years for this money to grow and compound completely tax-free. Pretty amazing stuff, isn't it? Now, in just a minute, I'm going to take this a step further and show you what the difference would be in tax-free compounding as opposed to taxable compounding. If you just joined us today on the Wealth Guardian show, we're talking about, does it make sense to convert taxable IRAs and 401ks into tax-free Roth accounts? You know, if you've saved and invested for retirement, that is super great on you. I'm glad you did it. But you know, there's a lot more to it than that, right? You need a strategy for your Social Security. You need a strategy for generating income. You're going to definitely need a strategy for reducing taxes and for withdrawing your money from your retirement accounts. You're going to have to learn how to pay for health care, Medicare, the med supplements, and there's a whole lot more to this. So how are you possibly going to make the most out of every single dollar you've saved for retirement? You know, it doesn't have to be a face-to-face meeting with me. I would like that. But it could be as simple as a telephone conversation that we have. You know, put 15 minutes into a telephone conversation. And that'll help you maybe understand if it's right for you to come in and sit down and let's do that serious planning. So if you've got $100,000 in a taxable IRA or a 401k, give us a jingle at 336-391-3409. And if you're afraid we're going to sell you something, well, I want you to be relieved to know we're not. We got nothing to sell you. Let me prove it to you, though. Let me prove you we can save you taxes and we can put you on a, let's call it a yellow brick road to retirement. Give us a call at 336-391-3409. All right, let's kind of recap what we've done so far. We've basically showed you how we can use the tax code to our advantage. Folks, listen to that. Very important. We can use this code, this diabolical IRS code, to our advantage if we do some planning. So we're showing you how to use bracket bump and get $30,000 a year converted to a Roth and only pay $4,500 in tax on that. And then we've also showed you how the break even is 3 years at a 5% return. Okay, let's take this step a little bit further. Let's say that at 65 years of age, you decide to keep it in an IRA, and you're going to grow this money for 20 years. Let's use 5%. So $30,000 at 20 years at 5% grows to $80,000. Okay? At 85 years of age, you decide you want to take this $80,000 out and pay for something, or you pass away and it goes to a beneficiary. That $80,000 is going to come out fully taxable. Let's assume that the tax rate then is 35%. Let's hope it's not any more than that. Let's assume it's still 35%. That means that your net out of that $80,000 is $51,739. Okay? Remember that number. Write it down if you're not driving. $51,739. That's in a taxable IRA. Let's look at the Roth situation. All right. Now, we've had to pay $4,500 in taxes. Let's assume you didn't pay it from another account. Let's assume you had to pay it out of your distribution. That means we're only starting with $25,500 as opposed to $30,000. Same circumstances. We're going to grow this for 20 years at 5%. This growth is tax-free. $25,500 growing at 5% for 20 years becomes $67,659. And again, you're age 85. And for whatever reason, you decide you need to take this chunk of money out and buy something. Or maybe you pass away and it goes to a beneficiary. How much tax is due on that $67,659? Not one copper penny. Your net is $67,659. Now, what number did I ask you to remember? $51,739. What's the pickup? The pickup is over $16,000. Now, do you think that makes some sense for you? To at least sit down and let's crunch some numbers? I think we all should do that. I just don't understand why folks over the years haven't taken advantage of this Roth IRA. I mean, it first came out, I think, in the late 90s. I mean, I converted as soon as I heard about it. Now, it's a very underutilized tool, which I think, honestly, was the greatest gift Congress ever gave us. Tax-free income in the future, I believe, is going to be worth its weight to you in gold. There's other ways to create tax-free income, and we can talk about that too. But for most folks, this is the easiest, the best way to do it. Granted, you have to think in the future. You have to think 5, 10, 15 years in the future. But at least let's put some numbers on the table and see if it makes any sense for you. Give us a call at 336-391-3409. Call us or come in and let's talk about your situation and is a Roth account right for you. You've been listening to the Wealth Guardian Show right here on 94.5 WPTI, Piedmont's news, talk, and sports station.